So storage backup across sort of multiple physical locations and environments. What are the major, whether it's the pandemic that's highlighted them or just more generally, what are the main, I guess, challenges with the technology at the moment?
Sure. So the challenges are many that people have with backup. And the first reason why that is backup happens every night, 5 nights a week, because you're trying to back up the data that changed that day. So you have copies of the latest data in case you need to recover for any reason. On top of that, data is growing at 20, 30, 40, 50% a year, depending on what the organization is and what the organization does. So as a result of that, you're forever chasing this ever growing amount of data and these backup windows. So performance first and foremost is the key to get the backups done. The ability to restore quickly, because you lose user productivity time if you can't restore quickly. Somebody deletes a file, overwrites a file, has a corrupted file, has an encrypted file, whatever the incident that occurs, you have to be able to recover. On top of that, you've got the challenge of making sure you can also, during the same time period, replicate that data off-site for disaster recovery, because you need another copy at another location in order to be able to recover from a flood or a tsunami or a hurricane or a tornado or an earthquake, etc. Now add in the fact that the world is becoming hybrid. Organizations are putting some of their data in the public cloud, they're keeping a lot of their data on premise, and now they're in two different worlds. So now you have to think about also backing up the data that's in the public cloud and how you back that up, because that data is no longer on your premise. Now we'll add one more on top of that, which is mobile workforces, right? You have everybody running around with laptops in the mobile workforce or working from home. You've got to figure out how to back that up. So you have this disparate, really spread out set of devices and data you've got to back up. You've got to do it every night. You've got to have it up to date. You've got to be able to scale as the data grows. So it's forever breaking, right? So if you talk to most people in backup, the backup director or the backup manager, they're forever trying to keep up with the fact that it's growing and breaking, growing and breaking, growing and breaking. So it's been this way, by the way, for 50 years. It's not new.
No, but as you alluded to, obviously the addition of cloud and managed services is putting, I guess, extra challenges. And also, I mean, I know the edge has been and sort of talked about for a while, but I'm guessing that potentially gives a separate sort of challenge as well in terms of what data is going to be produced there, where it's going to need to be processed and or stored. So yeah, I guess that, as you mentioned, that hybrid environment, what's is it getting worse, or is it are the solutions out there to help with this?
Yeah, I'm not sure it's getting worse. I think there's without a doubt. Let's take Office 365 as an example in Azure, right? Now you've got a fair amount of the Word documents or PowerPoint documents or Excel documents that used to be in the corporate data center now living in the Azure cloud. And organizations want to be able to back those files up in Azure, but have those come back to corporate to be part of their backup storage pool. So the backup application, where the backup storage, the backup application has to sit inside of Azure or sit inside of, let's say, Amazon AWS in order to back up that data that is now local to the public clouds, and then back that data back to corporate. So now it's sort of like backing up remote sites. So it's a similar technology to what we've always had, backing up remote sites. In the case of ExaGrid, we're the backup storage, right? So regardless of where the data is, we're sitting behind those backup applications, whether that's Veritas Net Backup or Commvault or Veeam or Oracle Iron Direct or SQL Dumps Direct or IBM Spectrum Protect. And we support about 25 different backup applications. So whatever backup application is being used to back up that data, regardless of where the data is, a remote location, a mobile device, a public cloud, your own data centers, wherever it is, they're backing it up to ExaGrid. So we're basically the catcher's mitt, if you will. The challenge on the storage end of it is that in backup, you keep retention. You keep maybe 8 or 10 weeklies. You keep maybe 12, 24, 36 monthlies. Maybe you keep 5, 7 yearlies. And the reason why you keep this retention is for legal discovery, for financial audits, for regulatory audits, for healthcare and financial, et cetera. So as a result, not only are you keeping the most recent copy of the data, like you would in primary storage, you have to keep upwards to 50 copies of data in backup. So the backup, due to the retention, becomes a different challenge, right? And for us, all the technologies that use what's called data deduplication. Because you're keeping not one copy, but as many as 50 copies, you can't keep each one of those as a full copy. The amount of storage would be overwhelming. So what happens is you compare one backup to the next backup and only keep the changes from backup to backup to backup. And that allows you to keep 50 copies of this data, all of your retention, in a much smaller footprint. To add on top of that, what challenges happen with that is everyone but ExaGrid does this deduplication, what's called inline. They do the deduplication between the backup application and the storage itself. And as a result of that, it's really slow because you're trying to do all this massive comparison computes between the backup application and the backup storage, which slows the backups down to about a third the speed of disk. On top of that, now you go to restore. All the data is in a deduplicated format. Or you want to boot a VM. You've got to wait for all that data to be rehydrated again. So not only are the backups slow, but a restore can take hours to maybe days. In the case of VM, it might take an hour to boot a VM. And then on top of that, as the data grows, goes from 100 terabyte to 500 terabyte to a petabyte, whatever your organization has for data, the backup window gets longer and longer and longer because you have that much more data to deduplicate. So if you only add storage behind a fixed controller, now you have the problem of you didn't add any compute. So what ExaGrid does different to address this is we do what's called tiered backup storage. So first of all, we have a front-end disk cache landing zone. So you write the data to the disk without deduplication. It keeps us at the performance of disk, which is 3 times faster than anybody doing deduplication for backup performance. So the backup window itself is much shorter. The second thing we do is we keep all the data in a front-end landing zone for the most recent backup so you can restore quickly. The data is sitting there in a regular format, not deduplicated, so that does not have to be rehydrated, and you can restore upwards to 20 times faster than deduplication appliances. And then thirdly, we're scale-out technology, meaning we have full appliances, which we'll talk about later, the new appliances we've just introduced. They're full appliances with processor, memory, networking, and storage. So as you double, triple, quadruple, quintuple the data, you double, triple, quadruple, quintuple the processor, the memory, the network ports, and the storage, so that if the backup window is 6 hours at 100 terabyte, it's 6 hours at 500 terabyte, it's 6 hours at a petabyte, it's 6 hours at 2 petabyte. So our approach is the only one in the market that has this tiered backup storage approach, where the front end tier for performance, if you will, for backup and restores, the back end for deduplicated repository, because we put all the deduplicated data in the second tier, and scale out to keep the backup window fixed length as it grows. And we're the only one on the planet with this approach.
Okay, and in terms of end users who are wrestling with the complexities that we've chatted about in terms of the hybrid environment, centralized, remote, edge coming on stream, stuff like that. Are there any, and you've explained beautifully the ExaGrid sort of approach, but are there any sort of bits of advice you'd give to people who are looking at, are aware they've got some of the problems you've outlined and what to do? Clearly your good selves can help out, but just in terms of how they, address some of the pain points as and when they're looking to get a solution.
Yeah, so the one thing I've seen, I've been in IT for 35 years on the vendor side. And so I've been talking to corporations and organizations around the world for the last 35 years. One of the strong things I would say to every IT organization is first, put down your requirements in writing. Too many organizations don't, and then when they buy a technology or they choose an approach, it falls short and it's too late. Now they've spent the money and they're stuck for 3 to 5 years with it. So first of all, create a document, even if it's just bullet points, that has all the requirements you need. And then secondly, test. If I could name the thousands of organizations I've seen not test, end up with the wrong technology and admit I bought the wrong thing because I just believed the marketing literature or I believed the salesperson and I didn't test. And I say to them, how can you not test if you're going to live with this for the next 3 to 5 years? That's a long time to live with a technology every day. Test it. By the way, if a vendor won't let you test, that's a red flag. If they want you to test with all kinds of contingencies or some kind of conditional purchase order, that's a red flag. The companies who are confident in what they have will say, here it is, test it. If you like it, buy it. If you don't, send it back. So I would say, first of all, have a long list of requirements. Test what you're going to buy, because you're talking about, backing up 50 or 100 or 500 terabytes or petabytes or 10 petabytes of data every day. And you're talking about whatever you buy, like I said, typically you keep it 3, 4, 5 years, sometimes even longer. Requirements, test to the requirements, make sure it's right up front before you buy. That would be my number one advice to anybody who has the complexity of backup, which they all do.
And in terms of the different storage, I mean, once upon a time, sort of physical backup. I mean, clearly there's a physical backup in, behind every storage solution. But when I say, people on premise, I guess, physical backup, there are now obviously cloud storage offerings, managed services, managed storage services and stuff. You got any thoughts as to, again, whether people are looking at those different offerings or how this might evolve over time? Clearly some suggest that the utility model, where we'll all just dial up and get whatever IT services we want sort of send over to us, or as opposed to what you keep on premise. And just any thoughts on how that might evolve, I suppose?
I think it, first of all, depends on the size of your organization. If you're a small SMB and you've got 1 or 2 IT people and 50 employees, you're more likely looking at the public cloud or an outsourced MSP, managed service provider, to run your IT. You don't have the expertise to understand all the different applications you're going to need and all the different things you need to do. So I think you'll see more and more of the SMB market go to a service. The little travel agency, the local insurance agent, the local tax office, they don't need to be experts in IT, right? They need to be experts in what they do and buy IT like you'd buy electricity or pay for water coming out of the sink. The larger organizations, and where ExaGrid focuses, we're sort of in the what we call the upper mid-market, up through the small enterprise into the enterprise. So we're not down in the SMB. So the kind of customers we're dealing with, they have 1,000 employees to hundreds of thousands of employees. They have 250 million in revenue up to 40, 50 billion a year in revenue, et cetera. So they're much bigger organizations. Those organizations are staying on-prem for now. It's a rare day we'll have a conversation about cloud. And the reason why is the cost of cloud, believe it or not, is more expensive than on-prem for bigger organizations. And the bigger organizations over the last 5 years have figured that out. They all went and tried it. They got the bill. They said, oh my God, this is more expensive than what I've been doing. And furthermore, they don't get rid of IT people. If just because you go to the cloud doesn't mean you're out of the IT business. Who at Amazon and who at Azure runs your IT for you? Nobody. You have to run it. So you still keep all of your IT people. You still have to keep all that expertise. So the only reason, therefore, to go to the cloud is because the infrastructure, the platform itself, is less expensive than running yourself, and currently it's not. So what we're seeing is people are using the public cloud where it fits for them, where it augments them. So they're staying on-prem, but they're doing things like taking their archive data, which is different than backup. Archive data is your primary data that you haven't touched in, let's say, 4 years. I have 2 petabyte of data, or I have 400 terabyte I haven't touched in 5 years. Let me archive that off to, let's say, AWS Glacier. Less than a penny a gigabyte. I'm never going to touch it. Geez, it's files I haven't even opened up in 4 years already. What's the likelihood I'm going to open them in the next 4 years? So push those all off to a Glacier. That makes sense. DevOps, where I need burstable compute at times. I'm developing, maybe it's video, maybe it's code, and all of a sudden I go to compile or run tests, and I need this much compute all at once. I'm not going to keep that much compute in my IT data center sitting around doing nothing. The cost is too high. I'd like to buy that compute when I want to burst. So burstable compute is another example of what I might go to the cloud for. For my mobile users, for my Office 365, not my corporate users. I'll do a perpetual license there, but my mobile users. So what we're seeing is, we don't believe, from talking to all the customers we talk to, we don't, and we've got 150 salespeople around the world, so we're having a lot of conversations a day, and we've got them in over 40 countries. So what we're seeing is that these customers are figuring out, where do I use the public cloud and what do I keep on-prem? And I think it's going to be hybrid for a lot longer than anybody can imagine. I don't think there's this rush to the cloud, and I don't think there's this rush to stay on-prem. I think everybody's figuring out which one is good for what. They each have their pros and cons for different application uses and different use cases, and let me figure out what I'm going to use in the cloud. And one last note on that, you'll see some people say, I got to get an application up real quickly. I don't have the time to do that on-prem. Let me go to the cloud and bring it up. Oh, 2 years from now, it's scaled. It's got a lot more users. It's costing me too much in the cloud. Let me bring that back in. So you're seeing stuff on the prem go to the cloud, stuff on the cloud go to the prem. Sometimes they go back and forth, depending on where it's more effective and where it's more cost effective. And I think everybody's seeing it now is, you have your on-prem, you have your public cloud, and you can move stuff around as needed. And companies like Nutanix, as an example, are creating that platform that allows you to move around like that. Make it like you have a seamless network. And beneath it, you don't know if it's public cloud or if it's private cloud. You just move the chess pieces around on the chessboard above that. And I think that's where it's going.
And just a quick follow-up. I mean, in the early days of the cloud, there was, whether it was scaremongering or reality, there was suggestion, obviously, once you're in the cloud, it was quite difficult to extract yourself from that, whether it's back to on-premise or head off to a different cloud. The way you're talking about it is suggesting it's that much easier now. Is it as simple as sort of flicking a switch, pressing a button, or are there still one or two issues around moving in and out of, different environments?
There's still issues, but not as bad as in the past. So it's kind of in the middle, right? So you had the movement to the cloud is being automated more through VMware and Nutanix, right? They're making it more seamless with all of the different technologies they continue to bring out. So I think if you go back 4 or 5 years, there were a lot of individual migration tools versus platforms. And you had to migrate data into the cloud. You had to migrate data back out of the cloud. It's becoming more seamless now. And I think we're heading in that direction at a pretty good clip. So it's gonna be very easy for you to say, I want to take this app and move it over here, and I want to take that app and move it over here. I want to take these compute resources and use them over here. These compute, it's becoming a virtual layer between the public cloud and the on-prem cloud. And now you even see Amazon doing their outposts, right? They're going the other way. Amazon now is starting to put compute inside of the prem, right? Called outposts. So it's going both ways.
Okay, and in terms of the actual storage technology itself, I mean, obviously, traditional hard disks, spinning disks, whatever, they've been around for ages. They continue to fulfill a need. I guess even tape has a role in the archiving of long-term storage.
Right.
And then you got flash SSDs that are, I guess they're a relatively mature technology. So looking ahead, do you see more of the same combination of that? I know people have talked about exotic, whether it's sort of holographic storage. I think there's DNA storage out there. I mean, what do you see as practical in terms of new ideas and technologies come forward, or is that all a little bit sort of sci-fi at the moment? And for most end users, they just need to get their heads down and use a combination of those things I've referenced.
So I think, first of all, storage always depends on what you're doing. How reliable do you need to be? How important is it? What performance do you need it to be? So therefore, what cost are you willing to pay? So if I have a high speed, I'm eBay, and I'm doing transactions, I don't know how many per second, right? Because there's so many, or Amazon, even better, how many transactions per second is Amazon doing? I have to have flash, and I have to pay for flash because flash is the fastest on the planet right now for reads and writes. However, if I've got a bunch of office workers working in an office, just working on Word documents and PowerPoint documents that most of the time are sitting in memory as I'm typing, and I only use the disk to open it and store it, I don't want to pay for flash because flash still costs 8 times the price of spinning disk. Go to backup. You see almost no flash in backup. People can't even afford to barely use disk in backup. When you look at the cost of disk based on retention, and you sit there and look at all the weeklies, monthlies, and years and put disk without deduplication or maybe some minimal deduplication of the backup app, the cost of that is overwhelming. Try to imagine saying to somebody, now let's take that by 8x and go to flash. They can't afford to do it. They can barely afford disk. So it depends on all of those factors. So what do we see today and what do we see in the future? Today, we still see spinning disk for the bulk of workload. We absolutely see flash in anything where you need high speed. Database, transactions, warehousing, warehouse applications for data warehouse applications where you're doing analytics, things where you need high-speed turns, right? Brokerage houses, right? Where, again, look how many transactions a brokerage house is doing. So you're going to see all the high-speed stuff be flash, the general workload still be spinning disk. And then where does tape fit? Tape still has a fit. Tape is great for long-term archive. I mean, if you're going to archive your data off your primary storage for files you haven't touched in 4 years, you can put that to cheap SaaS. You can put that into AWS at a penny or a little less than a penny a gigabyte per month for Glacier, or you can put that to tape, right? Backup doesn't use tape as much as it used to, but archive does. And even the bigger corporations still use tape for their really long-term backups. So they'll back up to some kind of, whether it's straight disk storage or maybe it's an appliance like ExaGrid or Dell EMC data domain, and still potentially for the very, very long stuff, put tape because of cost. So you've got those three things always fighting each other. reliability, performance, and cost, and you find the right mix for each use case. Now, the newer technologies, there's dozens of them we look at, right, that are very, very exciting and very, very promising, and storing data in pieces of glass and all kinds of things, right? So does something else come along? Absolutely. Is there anything within the next 2 or 3 years? Absolutely not.
Okay, so no one needs to panic just yet. And in terms of yourselves, we've talked a lot about storage, and I know some companies like to sort of position themselves more as data protection organizations. I mean, do you think that's helpful? Does it matter? Any thoughts from ExaGrid's point of view? Do you mind being called a storage company, or would you prefer to, the moniker data protection or yeah?
So we're in data protection or backup storage because what we do is all features around that. So for example, if we're sitting behind a Commvault has their own deduplication. It gets about a 5-to-1 deduplication ratio. So it does reduce the disk some, but not enough for cost. So we actually can take in Commvault deduplication, further deduplicate that another 3x to really lower the cost of the storage. We're the only ones, by the way, that can do that with Commvault. That's specific to backup. With Net Backup, let's say Net Backup Accelerator, as the accelerator data comes into us, we can reconstitute that data on our landing zone to create a fold to restore from. Again, they can't even do that in their own appliances or anybody else's appliances, and therefore that's special features that we've done for a Net Backup. With Veeam, we support the Veeam Data Mover, which is going to give you better security and better performance, but we're also supporting Veeam Sober so that all the jobs are automated and that scale out just happens automatically between Veeam and ExaGrid. So, and I could go on for hours on this. We have a lot of things we've integrated between the individual backup applications and ExaGrid so that you can get an advantage in the backup storage. So if you just take generic storage or generic appliance, put it behind these backup applications, they can't do all of this kind of stuff. So we are absolutely specific to either backup or data protection storage.
Okay. And maybe I should have asked you at the start, because we might be guilty of putting the cart before the horse, but you just recently, I think, launched some new appliances to your tiered backup storage portfolio. Is that right? Can you give us a little bit of back? I don't know if they were sort of brand new or if they're sort of tweaks of existing. Can you give us some?
Sure. There's 2 things actually we've recently announced. I'll do the first one, which is our retention time lock for ransomware. So as you know, everybody's petrified of ransomware right now. The hackers get in, they encrypt the primary storage. They either get a hold of another server on the network to get to the backup storage, or they come right through the backup application and they delete the storage and the backups. They delete the data in the backup storage. So now you don't have any backup or retention to recover from. The primary data is encrypted, and lo and behold, you have to pay the ransom. As you know, we have the 2-tier approach. So we have the front end for the performance tier for fast backups and restores, and then we deduplicate into a second tier, which is the repository. Since we have that repository, we have a non-network facing tier. So that if you go and issue the delete commands, it'll wipe out our landing zone, but not all the retention data on our second tier. We're the only ones that have this sort of layer of protection. On top of that, we have immutable data objects in that second tier repository, and we allow for what's called delayed deletes. So you could have 12 weeklies, 36 monthly, 7-yearlies, and that's still intact in the retention tier. But what we'll do is say, hey, for 14 days or for 10 days, don't process a delete request. So now what happens? Hackers come in, equip the primary storage. They go in either through another server of the backup storage, and they wipe out all of the backups, including our landing zone. We're no different than a Data Domain or an HP Store once, or a Veritas appliance, or any disk from NetApp, Dell, HP, whatever. We all get wiped out in that case. Except ExaGrid has the second tier. All the retention data is still there, still full intact, and wasn't deleted because we ignored the delete request for that 10-day period. So now you come panic on a Tuesday, oh my God, everything's encrypted, everything's wiped out. You go in and you just restore from us. In fact, we just had it happen, so this is perfect. I can't say the customer name because obviously it's security. But yesterday, we've upgraded the customer to our 6.0 version that had a ransomware attack, encrypted all the primary storage, wiped out all the backup storage, except they were still able to restore within 1 day ago of everything in the network, and they didn't pay the ransom. So the second thing we've introduced is the new appliances. So what are the new appliances? As you know, processor, memory, RAID cards, everything gets better over time. So periodically, you have to refresh your product line. It allows you to keep your performance up, allows you to keep the costs down so you can continue to ride the price curve for customers, et cetera. And also, the drives get bigger. And as the drives get bigger, if the RAID cards can handle the performance of those bigger drives, which the RAID card we use from Broadcom can, we went to bigger drives. So we're getting better rack space efficiency in these new appliances. We're putting more capacity in an appliance without slowing down the backups. We are getting, therefore, more data in a certain amount of rack space, and at the same time, we're lowering the costs. If you add on top of that, we came up with a new appliance called the EX84. It's now our largest appliance. You can put 32 of those in a scale-out system. That allows you to put 2.7 petabyte full backup in the first tier, plus all the long-term retention in the second tier, all in a single scale-out system. That's 50% bigger than our closest competitor, whether it be Veritas or HP or Dell or whatever. So we had the largest system in the market before. Now we even have bigger than that largest system in the market than we had before. And so we have that. The other thing we do different than everybody is we don't obsolete models. So what everyone else does is they refresh their model line. Then they either jack up the maintenance and support, or they give you an end date as to when you got to stop using it. But what if that gear is still good? You don't want it to end. And why are you getting higher maintenance just because you came out with new models? So what we do, we have a price protection program that says when you buy any model, first of all, you have the same price for that model for 5 years protected, but your maintenance and support won't go up more than 3% a year. And if we come out with new models and stop selling the current models, you still get maintenance and support at the same rate you were getting before, not to exceed 3% per year. And since day one, any old model and any new model has always and continues to always work inside the same system. So it's not like people who have a front-end controller and disk shelves, and then they come out with new disk shelves and it doesn't work with the controller. Or they come out with a new controller that doesn't work with the disk shelves. All our new appliances work in the same system, mix and match with our older appliances. In fact, we can have any size appliance or any age appliance work in a single size system, and we've always maintained that. So we've eliminated forced product obsolescence every time we bring out new models.
Okay. So as I say, we've covered a fair amount of ground on storage and ExaGrid, specifically. But before we close it, there were just one or two final thoughts you'd like to leave the viewers.
Yeah, I think it gets back to the thought I put forward earlier. If I could just take my 35 years in this industry and have stopped all the IT departments that bought the wrong technology because they didn't either put the requirements down first to know what they were buying and then found out later what they bought didn't work for them, or if they actually bought it and it didn't do what they were told it was going to do by the vendor, that would make me happy before I die. So I think the one strong message is always put all the requirements down of what you're trying to accomplish, and then tell the vendor you'd like to try it, even if it's just for a week or two. You'd be shocked how often you won't buy what you think you were going to buy when you do that. And I've seen it for 35 years. I think I have traveled and probably visited at least half of the Fortune 1000 in the United States and half of the 1,000 largest companies worldwide in my career. And if that's the only thing I could impact in this world, I'd be a happy man.
Okay. I mean, that's lovely. Thanks very much for your time. Appreciate it very much.
All right. Thank you.